Okay, welcome back, everybody. So this is the second of the virtual town halls that we're doing regarding the merger associated with Central Pierce Fire and Rescue, Graham Fire and Rescue, and Ording Valley Fire and Rescue. Just a couple of mechanics this afternoon. So if you have questions, you have a couple options to get those into the studio here. You can put them into the chat in Zoom, and I will either see those or get notified of those, and I'll do my best job to answer that. Or if you would like to speak directly, you can raise your hand, and we'll figure out the right way to get your microphone unmuted and bring you right in here to the studio, and we can work through your question in real time. So I know that we have some folks online, so I'm going to go ahead and get started, and we'll go from there. So my name is Dustin Morrow, as it says here on the screen, and maybe you've seen me out in the community. I've been doing quite a few presentations, but I am the fire chief here of the three organizations, so Central Pierce Fire and Rescue, Ording Valley Fire and Rescue, and Graham Fire and Rescue. It is a unique opportunity that I'm able to serve all three of those organizations in the community that we're serving, and I'm excited to share some details with you today about the project that we've been working on for the last several months, honestly. So let's talk about what I'm going to try to cover today. The first thing is I want to just share some specifics about what these three organizations were or are as standalone organizations. Then I'm going to talk about why the 15 fire commissioners have really been pushing these three organizations to merge into a new district that's providing services basically within the same geography. And then I want to talk a little bit about what we've been doing and how the new organization is going to show up. I want to spend just a couple minutes talking specifically about all the work we've been doing on culture and identity, because that, from the beginning of this project, has been at the center of the conversation, not only in the community, but also obviously with our employee groups as well. And then I just want to walk through what is honestly a very mechanical process driven by law to put these three organizations together into one. So let's start with what the fire districts are. So Central Pierce Fire and Rescue protects about 85 square miles. We currently serve over 240,000 community members. We do that from 13 fire stations, and we had about 349 first responders. We have since hired, and that number is larger. Graham Fire and Rescue, we protect 70 square miles, about 70,000 community members. We do it from 5 fire stations. We've actually purchased property for the 6th fire station down in the Kapowson area. And we started this project with 111 first responders out of that organization. It too has grown and hired additional people as well. And then Ording Valley Fire and Rescue, we protect about 23 square miles, about 16,000, upward actually to 20,000 community members. Out of 2 fire stations, a third that's sitting up on Patterson Road that we're working to figure out how to get that facility back in service in the not too distant future. And then about 30 first responders that came from that original organization as well. So when we put all that together, the conversation we've been having actually over the last 2 years, when we put all that together and consolidate those resources, we end up covering 178 combined square miles, about 330,000 community members here in Pierce County. We do it actually, originally we were doing it with 48 staff units. We're crossing over 50 staffed units in a 24-hour period of time and growing that number. And we originally started out with 20 fire stations, and same thing, that number is growing too as we're working to put facilities back in the system to shorten up the response time to the best of our ability. We currently have almost 500 first responders, the women and men, that are actually responding to your 911 calls. About 125 to 150 times a day, these individuals are providing service out in the community. So you can see when we put those three organizations together, there is a lot of strength, there's a lot of resource that we can actually do the service work that you're requesting each and every day. And we believe, as the commissioners do, staff, and the commissioners believe that we can do it a lot better together than apart. So why are the commissioners driving this merger? The number one thing is, when you call 911, we believe that you're expecting us to be there in the shortest time frame possible. So we're building systems together that allow our response times to be well coordinated and reduced so that we can get there quickly and build systems that number keeps coming down and down and down when you call 911. There's been already a demonstration that there's so much more flexibility for us when we're deploying those resources together versus apart, and when we can do it based upon real-time information as a combined organization versus three separate organizations. Our ability to actually have our chief officers who are on duty 24 hours a day, there's 5 of them, that can coordinate that entire resource package and make sure that the closest unit is going to the call in a timely manner. That's what we're trying to achieve. We obviously have had lots of conversations as 3 independent organizations about how are we going to manage this growth cycle? How is Central Pierce going to build fire stations that's not duplicative of something that is in Graham or duplicative of something that's in Orting? So when we're planning together and we're doing things together, our ability to really strengthen and adapt and overcome some of the pressures around growth is much, much more capable together than apart. During this process, obviously, there's been lots of conversations and direction at the commissioner level and down about this can't impact our employee groups. We have amazing people in these 3 organizations that honestly are giving their all to the community every single day. So we really needed to make sure we focused on no job losses, no station closures, nothing that brings harm to the employee group in any way. And I can tell you we've accomplished that, I believe, in a really, really big way. We also have been highly focused on the funding that goes with this organization or this change, this merge. And we're really excited to tell you that we're coming in front of the community to tell you that there is no intent to put additional levy structures in the system. There isn't any intent to put bonds in front of the community to facilitate this merge. And we're working really, really hard to make sure that we can standardize the fire benefit charge across the geography to the best of our ability, whether we can do it overnight or we can do it over a short period of time. We're making sure that that fire benefit charge is going to be applied throughout the large geography in a standardized way. And then, of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention these 3 organizations have a really rich history of cooperating. Even though there is automatic aid, mutual aid agreements, the fact is these 3 organizations have always been amazing partners. They've always done a great job of sharing resources as growth has happened, but we just want to leverage the full capacity of actually legally having one entity, driving out duplication, creating efficiencies, making sure that we're using your tax dollar to the best that we can to accomplish the most, which is most specifically around making sure we get to your emergency incidents in a really timely manner. So I don't think I need to tell you, especially if you're living in our service area, but over time, these 3 organizations, the growth, the population increase since 2010 has just woven these organizations together. It's honestly hard at this point to tell which parcel is in which particular geography. So, population has increased about 18% since 2010, and we are using data extensively in this merger process, and we do know that by 2033, we expect to see another 12% increase in population within this new 178 square miles that we're going to be servicing. Excuse me. Also, at the same time, the demand for our services continues to increase. So over the last 6 years, we've seen about a 22% increase in 911 call volume or service requests in general. And this past year, 2024, we just peaked 48,000 total incidents in the system. And that 48,000 incidents actually equates to about 150,000 times that a unit is on the road. So one call can generate multiple units on the road. So we are a very busy organization, and honestly, each and every day we have to lean on each other in order to be able to service the call when it comes in. It's why sometimes you see a Graham unit in the Central Pierce core area or Central Pierce unit down in Orting. It's just gotten to a point where we have to be dependent on each other in order to service that call demand. Of course, I already mentioned, but we want to get to your calls as fast as possible. There are many things in our profession that time truly matters. A cardiac arrest, a stroke, a drowning, a house fire, a vehicle that there are trapped occupants, all those things, time truly matters for us to either save a life and or preserve your property. So we're making sure that regardless of the jurisdiction that we're sending the closest unit to that call. We're working with our primary partner, South Sound 911, to make sure that as a combined organization, which has the strength to honestly influence this change, is to make sure that we're dispatching that 911 call as high in the queue as possible so that you're not waiting, answering too many questions. When you know it's a fire and they know it's a fire, they can send the fire department so we can get to your call quickly. We're also being really purposeful about making sure we're closing that response continuum by putting either fire stations back in the system or adding fire stations to the system. So I'm really proud to share with you, we've already put Station 62 in the Brookdale community back in service. We have Station 66 in the South Hill area that's about ready to go back in service sometime in April or May. We have purchased back the Shaw Road Fire Station from the city of Puyallup. We purchased back the North Puyallup Fire Station from the city of Puyallup that we believe we'll be able to put back in the system. As I mentioned, we're currently studying how we're going to put service up on the Patterson Road area and the existing fire station that Ording Valley owned. We are working diligently on some design criteria for Station 92 that's down at Kapowson that we know that we're going to be able to staff in the not too distant future and enhance services down there. And of course, we're working down in the valley floor of Puyallup too on what we call our Station 73 project that's tied into the fairgrounds. So all of that infrastructure change, addition, add back in is something that we're doing as a collaborative, and being able to do that with existing resources, not coming back out to the community asking for more. Excuse me. Also, under this current phase, we're studying, as I shared, the data very closely. So we can already see just by these cooperative efforts, these contractual elements that exist between these three organizations, we're already seeing positive change in our ability to respond to your calls in a more timely manner, with a greater number of resources when we arrive, and actually reduce the total time on task for some of your major incidents. And I know you can't see it well on the screen, but one picture depicts kind of what we were, and the picture with the circles depicts a greater level of green, and that is a way with which we study our performance out in the community. So when seconds matter, we're already seeing that just by doing what we're doing even ahead of the merger, we're making a major change in our performance out at the street level. We're hoping that you're experiencing that same thing. Also, we are spending a lot of time to make sure that we're safer together. So it's just not about getting to your incident quickly. It's about getting to your incident with enough people to do all the tasks that are required to be done at one time, and that we do it in a manner that does not create any injury or harm to our first responders, and of course, not any injury or harm to you or your property while we're doing that work. So we've been heavily focused on making sure that all of our radio communications are functioning, because communication is critical for us to do our work. As I mentioned, we have 5 on-duty chief officers. We recently put a district chief in place so that we have really quality command and control and resource allocation over this entire 178 square miles. Bringing together 3 organizations has allowed us to deploy finally our 3 specialty teams. So we have a 36-person technical rescue team, we have a 36-person water rescue team, we have a 36-person hazmat team. Each of those respectively are required to have 6 people on duty per day that are trained in those specialty, complex, more critical incidents. Even though they don't happen all the time, they do take a lot of our resource. They are very high risk. They frequently come with super unsafe situations, and we needed to make sure that we could dedicate resources to that. The only way that we were able to finally do that is by bringing together a cooperative effort together of these 3 organizations. And then lastly, we've done a great job. I feel great about all the training that we've put in front of these 3 organizations to make sure that we can accomplish being safe while we're coming to your call and servicing your request. The thing, honestly, that I think I'm most proud of, if I can share, is just the level of community engagement that we have underway. So same thing, Central Pierce was trying to do this work, Graham was trying to do this work, Ording was trying to do this work. All of us were doing the very best that we could, but now that we're together and have actually put the right staff in the right spots, we have amazing public education programs where we have teachers actually that are directly engaged in the curriculum development, the curriculum delivery. They're partnering with the other teachers in the schools to make sure that we're teaching the right fire safety education that's aligned with their regular school curriculum. We're doing an amazing job offering CPR classes throughout the community, fire extinguisher classes, safe sitter classes. There's just a host of items that we are providing under our public education programs, all of which you can find on our website in case you want to get scheduled for any of those. We also have a tremendous amount of safety programs, whether it be smoke or CO alarms that you need installed or checked. We actually got a grant for a lot of CO alarms that we can provide you with. We are still heavily engaged in protecting your head, so bike helmets is something that we offer and engage with, and of course car seat installations and several other items too. And then the other side of that house, the education house, is just the outreach side of the house, the communications staff. They've done a phenomenal job through this process of keeping the community educated. We're doing our best job possible to keep you informed about incidents that are occurring throughout the community and to be engaged in other community-related aspects that really create a strong partnership relationship between this fire district and you, a community member, in order to keep you safe and keep you informed. I love the work that we're doing in our community outreach and public education programs. I just, my job as the fire chief is to do everything I can to prevent the emergency before it happens. We're a reactive industry by nature, but if I can put staff and time and attention around preventing the emergency in the first place, I feel like I've done my job. So let's talk about this new organization. So in order to create the new organization, there is a pathway that we have to do this. So the voters of Graham Fire and Rescue and Ording Valley Fire and Rescue are actually the communities that will vote on April 22nd, actually a short few days away. So if supported, then we will start to operate the district as if we are one going between April and January of 2026. And we'll operate under our new purpose and ethos. We will operate under a new governance structure, and we will operate under a single funding structure. So the governance structure does require, we have 15 commissioners, as I mentioned. They do have to get back down to 5 commissioners within a 3-election cycle. And they are already having that conversation about how that's going to occur. They're having those discussions at their regular board meetings, which is the 2nd and 4th Monday of every month. And you're welcome to attend those at any time to hear any of those discussions or be informed by the commissioners directly about this project. And then the funding elements are already in place. All of us are coming to this organization with strong financial positions. We're all operating on a regular fire levy and EMS levy and a fire benefit charge. So there is no change in that general structure that's going to apply to the new organization. The purpose and ethos I wanted to save for last because it's work that we've been doing for the last 16 months that is just super impressive. So, we originally called it the 4th culture, but really what it landed around is understanding what our true purpose is when we bring this new organization together. And that purpose is really just we're people helping people. And it's simple, but very complex. We know what emergency services you're expecting from us, and we're going to provide those. And we also know that we have an expectation of ourselves to do something more than what you expect. So it just became very simple for us to say, hey, we're just people like you helping people like you. And it has really resonated throughout our organization well. And then we did land on really 5 values that we are holding each other accountable to make sure that as we weave in the organization or be in the community that we are operating within these values of really trust and compassion and ownership, courage and humility are the 5 elements that we nailed down that we're holding ourselves accountable to. And then within this same space, all the way back to the original conversations that we were having when we started this, is identity is a really big deal, not only for you, but for us as well. So the commissioners are having a conversation about how will we potentially rebrand this organization? How might we rename this organization? We haven't started any of those processes yet. I can tell you this, I know from sitting in the commissioner meetings that there will be a robust public process to engage you in any of those changes that may occur. And of course, there's financial considerations to think about here. There's representation to the new geography and whole. There are elements of these 3 organizations' identity that we want to try to carry forward. So we've really taken the pressure off ourselves to put that post-vote and make sure we understand how we're going to engage the community in the process to really, potentially rebrand, re-identify, and rename what this new organization is, and the community will be involved. So let's talk about the mechanics of the actual merger process. So all the way back to May of 2024, these 15 fire commissioners, who at the time were meeting as 3 independent boards, basically authorized and directed staff to explore the process to merge the 3 districts. Then between May and 2024, November of 2024, we did all the legal work that was required to understand the process. We made sure that we walked through all the environmental impact studies that were required, which you might say, environmental impact study, it's a fire district. We said something similar, but there is a legal process for us to go through to make sure that the assembly of this new, larger single machine doesn't have unexpected consequences, to traffic or to ponds or streams or anything else that sits within that environmental checklist. And our staff did a great job of making sure we met all those benchmarks. Obviously, we had to work through a very complex boundary review process, which has been approved and can be the formation of a new district should the voters choose in January 1 of 2026. And then we launched the initial phases of our public engagement campaign. Then in January of 2025, the commissioners, again acting as 3 independent boards, ratified all the resolutions that were required to actually start the legal movement, the legal process towards merger. And then they also made a decision to start meeting as a single board and operating, actually it was a little bit before this, operating as if we were one, so that they could all have the same information at the same time, provide the same policy position to staff, and we could be much more effective about moving through this phase. And then back to that communications and outreach group, they started the phase 2 process of community engagement. And then as I mentioned, in April of 2025, and again, only based upon the law, the RCW 52, the Graham voters and the Orting voters have the vote to come into Central Pierce. Central Pierce has been identified as the legacy surviving entity. It doesn't mean that Central Pierce is taking over Graham or Orting. This is all part of a legal movement that's required. And it's why we're going to have a conversation about renaming, re-identifying, rebranding Central Pierce if that's what's chosen by the policymakers and the community. And we're just going to continue in that process as we move up to April 22nd, hoping that the outcome is going to be what's desired. And then from April through January of 2026, we'll be working through all the implementation aspects of what it means to move from these 3 amazing entities, Central Pierce Fire and Rescue, Orting Valley Fire and Rescue, Graham Fire and Rescue, into this one new amazing fire district that sits right here in the heart of Pierce County. And we're super, super excited about it. So that is what's going on. We're kind of at the end of this project. The vote is kind of the conclusion or the major milestone to this project. But it doesn't mean that any of these 3 entities or the culture or the people or the services go away. If that vote is successful, it just means we're moving on to another phase where these same great people throughout these 3 organizations are going to be the same great people that are servicing you every single day, just like they are now. At all times, you're welcome to come to any one of our commissioner meetings. Again, they're the 2nd and 4th Mondays of the month. The Central Pierce Board, Graham Board, and Orting Board are all meeting together during those 2 monthly meetings. And then you obviously have a ton of information that you can access on our website. There is a QR code on this presentation that will take you specifically to the pages that has all the information associated with merger. There is an info@Central Pierce email that sits on that website too that you can send in your questions, and that does get routed to the right staff member if you have questions about merger or anything else that's going on in these 3 organizations. And you're obviously always welcome to call in direct, and you can ask for me by name, Dustin Morrow, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have about this project or anything else that's going on for your emergency services within the community. And other than that, I'm going to take a quick glance to see if there's any chats or questions in the chat. I don't see any on my screen. I'm going to look over there, make sure there's nothing there, and I don't see any hands up. So I think I'll sign off right at this point. I really appreciate your time and attention, and we'll talk to you later.